Hello, students and families. Today we're going to be reading Tale of a Tadpole. And while we are reading that, I would like for you to work on saying some things. There is a person in the story that makes comments that are not very nice or helpful. And the person in the story, the main character, she just ignores that person. Sometimes that can work to just ignore someone, but it might be even more helpful if you tell them,
Stop.
or if you say,
Do. Don't. Like. Don't like.
So every time you come up to a situation in the story where there is someone who is saying things that are not nice or not helpful, you can work on saying don't like, no, or stop, or not, or any of those words that would show someone that what they are saying is not appreciated right now. Staff, families, anybody working with your students, if you would model this for your students and then see if there is someone who wants to repeat this or someone who wants to do this themselves for the next try. There are a few different opportunities to be able to say not, no, don't like, or stop. And so you've got a lot of good opportunity there, and this would be a great time to do that. I will show you the pictures in the story now. All right. In this fish tank lives a tadpole named Fred. Every day, Francine feeds him fish food and waits for his feet to come in. It is what they told her to do at the nature center. She is waiting. She's being very patient. It could take a long time, Francine's mother says. You have to be patient, says Francine's father. So they're telling her, you have to wait, you have to wait. A lot of good things we have to wait for. I've heard of frogs turning into princes just because some princess kissed them, Francine's older sister tells her. Of course she means in fairy tales. That doesn't actually happen in real life. Have you tried kissing Fred? She asks. Francine ignores her. You could also say to stop. But every day she watches Fred to see if something's happened. Weeks go by. She has to wait for a long time. We have to wait a long time for this coronavirus too, so we're used to waiting at this point. Weeks go by. Fred looks a little larger. Then one day, as Francine is filling up the tank with water from the pond, she sees something. Quick, quick, come look, Francine calls to her family. They come running. Look at her family run to her. She's standing over here by the fish tank where the frog lives, and they're running to her. Go, go, you could say, go. Frog legs, Francine's mother says. Back ones anyway. It's a step in the right direction, says Francine's father. Funny looking toes for a prince though, don't you think? Asks Francine's older sister. Francine ignores her. But every day she watches Fred to see if something new has happened. What else could she say to Francine's sister? What could she say? Days go by. Fred's tail looks longer. Then one day, as Francine is adding stepping stones to the tank, she sees two bumps behind Fred's head. At bedtime, Francine looks again. Quick, quick, come look, Francine calls to her family. There's another picture. They come running. They're just in time to see one bump pop out an arm. The next day, Fred has two. That almost looks like a frog now, Francine's mother says. A froglet, says her father. Or a princelet with a wand, says Francine's older sister. What can we tell her sister? Is that helpful? Is that nice? Francine ignores her, but now she gives up feeding Fred. All the nutrients he needs are stored in his tail. Francine knows this from the nature center. But every day she still watches Fred to see what more will happen. Day by day, Fred's arms and legs get fatter, Fred's eyes get bigger, Fred's mouth gets wider, only his tail keeps getting shorter. When they were talking about that his tail is kind of like a bag of food for him. So if we all had tails, maybe we could store food in there, and then if we got hungry, we could just use the food from our tail. That's what the froglets do. Don't worry, frogs don't need tails, Francine tells him, unworried. Why isn't she worried? It's because she knows what's supposed to happen from the nature center. Sometimes we see things and we get nervous about them, but if we know why they're happening, we don't worry as much. So if you ask some questions about things, that might help you, because then you know what's going on and you don't need to worry. Then for the next few days, Francine forgets to watch. Finally, she remembers. She rushes to look. But where can Fred be? Francine stares and stares. A tank full of water is all that she sees. Then suddenly, quick, quick, come look, Francine calls to her family. They come running. All of them stare. Don't see the frog in this picture. We'll have to see if the next picture has him. Oh, you see him? On the top of the stepping stones sits a small frog with barely a stub for a tail. He is staring back at them. Well, 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 just look at that, Fred, says Francine's mother. Congratulations, Francine's father says. It's hard to imagine any princess ever wanting to kiss him, though, isn't it? Asks Francine's older sister. Francine ignores her. She hurries off to catch insects to feed Fred. What else could she say to her older sister? A few days later, Francine's grandparents come for a visit. Francine shows them her frog. His name is Fred, she tells them. Hi there, Ted, their grandpa says. He's a bit hard of hearing. That means he doesn't hear very well. That Fred certainly is a good-looking toad, says Francine's grandma, who hears fine. Toad? Says Francine. Right, says her grandma. Your Fred is a true toad if I ever saw one. A toad is a kind of land frog. How can you tell? Asks Francine. Pardon me, what did you say? Asks her grandpa, turning up his hearing aid. How do you know Fred's a toad? Francine shouts. No need to shout, I can hear you fine now, her grandpa says, but he's glad to explain. See how dry his skin is and how bumpy? See how short his legs are? If Ted were a toad or were a frog, his skin would be smoother and wetter. His legs would be longer. His back toes would be webbed more. He'd be slimmer. True frogs live in ponds. True toads live in woods and backyards. Do you see where the toad is and where the frog is? Which one looks like the toad and which one looks like the frog? They described them. So you can also describe things, and that will help you to be able to be clear to other people. Your grandpa and I had a pet toad in our backyard, said Francine's grandma. It lived there for years. It caught plenty of spiders and insects, believe me. If I were you, I would put that Ted in the yard and let him catch bugs too, Francine's grandpa says. His name is Fred, says Francine. Still, backyard living sounds good to her. She's getting awfully tired anyway of having to catch so many insects to feed him. Oh, it's a lot of work. She wants to take a break. Therefore, that same day, very carefully, Francine takes Fred from the tank, carries him into the yard, and sets him on the ground. You can look here, she's setting him on the ground. Can you see the tiny little toad? It's right there. It's pretty small when you zoom out. As she watches, he hops away, but not too far. Using his hind legs, he digs a hole in the dirt and backs into it. Fred looks up at Francine and blinks. Then he flicks out his tongue and catches a small fly. Fred pushes in his eyes and swallows it. You can see here he's catching the fly. Oh, that must have tasted good. What do you think? Would you eat a fly? You could say yes or no. You could say like or don't like. Would you eat a fly? It's a good pet that doesn't need too much attention, Francine's mother says after dinner that evening. Or a shed, says Francine's father. I wonder if toads turn into princes too, says Francine's older sister. Francine ignores her. What else could she say to her sister? She's been saying that a lot this book. But Francine's grandma says, oh, I'm sure they do, but you just try to find a princess nowadays who will kiss one. Princess Schmincess, says Francine's grandpa, his hearing aid turned up. I'd say the story ended when everyone lives happily ever after. Well, then that's that. All of them do. There's Francine and her toad. All right, what did you think of that story? Say if you liked it or you did not like it. So parents and staff, you can help them get to that page if they liked or didn't like the story. And then you can also say what a story might be that you would like to hear. You could describe and say if you want it to be about an animal, or if you'd like me to talk about a certain topic like some questions or waiting or something like that. We can talk about some different words that we have used and we can use them in a story. Let me know if you have any input for that, and that will work. Have a wonderful day.